The first lie my sister told was small. The last one carved my name from destiny and left me to bleed beneath a blood-red moon. The bond ceremony reeked of iron and roses. The pack gathered in the great hall, stone walls trembling with laughter and expectation. Celine, my elder sister, moved through them like the goddess she had been named for. Moonlight clung to her silver-threaded gown, and every gaze adored her. And I, Leora, stood in her shadow, forgotten, unseen. Yet the Alpha-to-be had been meant for me. Adrian's eyes had once found me in quiet corners of the forest, his hand lingering against mine. That memory had been my heartbeat, until the bond night, when the moon's call stilled the hall. Adrian reached out, not for me, but for her. The pack howled as their bond sealed, silver fire burning across his skin. Celine wept as though shocked by fate, a liar's tears. Rage seared my veins, my chest locked with betrayal, and then, at the hall's edge, where shadows gathered, he stood, a figure taller than the rest, regal burnished skin, gleaming golden eyes molten and fixed on me. Not a man who celebrated, a predator who had found prey, or a king who had just found his queen. The hall roared, but silence wrapped around us. Fate had been stolen from me, but another, darker, stronger, had just risen from the shadows. Begin an unforgettable journey, thrilling and irresistible. Subscribe for Forbidden Love, Shadowed Wolves and Dark Secrets. Chapter 1, Ashes of the Chosen. The morning after the bond ceremony bled grey and bitter. I awoke not to the warmth of pack voices, but to silence. My room smelled faintly of smoke. The fires that had burned long into the night during Celine's celebration still lingered in the stone walls. I pushed myself upright, every muscle heavy as though grief itself had weight. Through the narrow window I could see the courtyard. Celine stood there, her arm curled around Adrian's, laughing as if the world had bent perfectly for her. Pack members encircled them, voices raised in adoration. I pressed my palm against the window frame until my nails dug into wood. How quickly they forgot. I had trained alongside them, fought alongside them. I had bled for this pack. Yet in the span of a single night, I had become a ghost no one spoke of, a shadow they pretended not to see. My door creaked. Rylan slipped inside. "Leora," he whispered, shutting it behind him. His broad shoulders were tense, his dark hair falling across his forehead in messy strands. He had been my friend since childhood, steadfast, loyal, but today his eyes carried the pity I loathed most. "I don't want your sympathy," I said, sharper than I meant. He didn't flinch. Instead, he crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed, lowering his voice. I saw his face, Leora. Adrian. He looked wrong, as if something didn't fit. My chest tightened. The bond doesn't lie. "No," Rylan admitted, searching my expression. "But sometimes people do." I turned away. My sister's laugh carried faintly from outside, sharp as glass. I clenched my fists. She'll make him believe it's perfect. She's always been able to make people believe. Rylan leaned closer. "Then you can't let her win. Not like this. You're stronger than her." I wanted to believe him, but strength did not matter against the will of the moon goddess. The memory rose unbidden, golden eyes staring from the shadows. Watching, waiting, not pitying me, claiming me, in some wordless, terrifying way. The air shifted. My breath caught as though the forest itself whispered through the walls. "Leora?" Rylan's voice sharpened. "What is it?" I shook my head, unwilling to tell him. The Dark Alpha was a name spoken only in rumors, in warnings whispered to pups by firelight. He had been exiled. Dangerous. A man who bore the curse of the wild moon. But his gaze had found me, and I knew No matter how tightly I tried to shut my heart, that fate had not finished with me. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Ashes. The courtyard rang with laughter that morning, a cruel hymn of joy that seemed to rise louder every time Celine's voice chimed above it. I stood at the edge of the hall's great doors, unseen as always, the rough wood digging into my palms. The pack was assembled before the fountain, its water glinting pale beneath the weak sun, and at the center of it all, Celine preened. She wore white again, though the ritual was over. Her gown shimmered with threads of silver that caught every beam of light, as if she had woven the moon into fabric. Adrian stood beside her, tall and steady, his arm a fortress at her back. His expression was unreadable, but when Celine leaned close and pressed a kiss to his cheek, the crowd erupted into applause. I bit the inside of my cheek until the taste of copper spread across my tongue. They celebrated as though she had slain dragons, as though she had earned this bond through fire and sacrifice. No one asked what it had cost me. No one wondered if fate had erred. "You're watching her again." Ryland's voice cut low at my side. He had come quietly, his movements always careful, but his presence was grounding. His hand brushed my elbow, steady, though he kept his gaze forward, as if afraid to meet my eyes. "I need to see it," I whispered. "If I stop, I'll start believing it was only a nightmare." Ryland exhaled, sharp, frustrated. "It is a nightmare. Just not yours alone." Before I could answer, Celine's gaze lifted. She saw me. For the barest moment, her lips curved, not with joy, but with triumph. As if every laugh, every adoring cheer was not for the bond, but for the wound she knew she had carved into me. She wanted me to see. She wanted me to break. I turned, pulse hammering, fury clawing at my ribs. I fled the courtyard, boots striking stone, until the weight of their voices dulled behind me. The forest drew me like a refuge, its shadows thick and damp with mist. Pines whispered above, branches knitting against pale daylight, and the air cooled against my skin. Only then did I let my chest heave, my breath spilling ragged. I pressed a hand to the bark of an old oak, rough beneath my palm. "Why her?" The words rasped from me like a prayer. "Why always her?" The forest answered, not with words, but with presence. The air thickened, heavy as storm before rain. The fine hairs at the nape of my neck prickled. My wolf stirred uneasily, ears straining, and then, there it was. The gaze. I turned slowly, heart slamming against my ribs. Between the trees, shadow clung to a figure, tall, unmoving, carved of something that felt older than stone. His eyes, gold, molten, unrelenting, locked onto mine. It was not the first time I'd seen him, but it was the first time I knew he meant for me to. My lips parted. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and then a branch snapped behind me. "Leora?" I spun. Ryland stood several paces away, his brow furrowed, his hand hovering near the dagger at his hip. He glanced past me, into the trees, but his eyes did not widen. He saw nothing. When I turned back, the figure was gone, but the presence lingered, curling around me like smoke, a promise threaded with danger. Ryland approached, voice taut. "You shouldn't be out here alone. The woods." His jaw tightened. "The woods aren't safe anymore." I forced my voice steady, though my pulse thundered in my ears. "I'm not afraid." He searched my face, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "Then maybe you should be." Chapter 3. The first mark of shadow. The celebration did not end with dawn. Celine made certain of that. By midday, the courtyard was alive again, with pack members dancing in a ring, their boots stamping the earth to the rhythm of drums. Platters of food circulated, the scent of roasted meat heavy in the air. Children raced between legs, weaving through the chaos as though the world had always been this bright, this sure. I stood at the edge, near the stone well, invisible. That had become my gift, invisibility. Every smile bent towards Celine, who stood at the fountain's lip, her arm looped through Adrian's. His jaw remained tight, but no one seemed to notice. They only saw her glow, the perfect heiress, the chosen mate. "Leora," a voice murmured. I turned. Mara, one of the elders' daughters, slipped closer. Her golden hair was plaited tight against her head, her eyes flicking nervously toward the crowd before landing back on me. We had never been close. She belonged to Celine's circle, the ones who adored her. "What do you want?" My voice came out more brittle than I intended. Mara bit her lip, then whispered, "It should have been you." The words startled me. I stared at her, searching for mockery, but found only fear. She glanced again at Celine, then leaned nearer. "Don't trust her. She wanted this for years. She'll stop at nothing to keep it." Before I could answer, she darted away, vanishing into the crowd like a leaf swept on wind. A coldness spread through me. Mara's warning wasn't news. I had always known Celine's hunger. But hearing it from her own circle was different. It was confirmation. The drums pounded louder, rattling the air. Then Celine's laughter rang sharp. "Leora," she called, her voice carrying over the crowd. Heads turned. I stiffened as eyes finally landed on me, heavy and judgmental, like I had been dragged unwilling into firelight. Celine beckoned with a graceful flick of her fingers. "Come, don't sulk in the shadows." I forced my steps forward, every instinct screaming against it. My boots scraped stone, the sound harsh in the silence that spread as I reached the fountain. Celine's hand shot out, delicate and firm, pulling me closer. Her perfume coiled around me, sweet as rot. "Don't look so grim," she purred, pressing her cheek against mine so the crowd would see sisterly affection. Her whisper seared in my ear. "You never stood a chance." He was always mine. My nails dug into my palms, but I smiled, because that's what she wanted, and what they all expected. Adrian's gaze flickered to me then, sharp and quick, like a knife unsheathed for only a heartbeat. I swore his jaw tightened further, his grip on Celine's waist stiffening. But he said nothing. I could not breathe. The drums resumed, the crowd cheered, and I felt it. Again, the prickle, the storm. Heat ghosted across the back of my neck, as though unseen eyes grazed my skin. My wolf stirred, restless, ears pricked toward the tree line beyond the courtyard. I turned my head just enough, and there he was, not illusion, not shadow, real. He stood half-veiled by trees at the forest's edge, taller than any man present, his form cloaked in dark leathers that moved like second skin. His presence radiated command, an aura so heavy it bent the air itself. His skin gleamed in the fractured sunlight, deep and burnished, and his golden eyes caught the day like fire. The dark Alpha. Our gazes locked. The courtyard fell away, the drums, the laughter, Celine's smirk. All of it dimmed beneath the weight of him. His stare burned through me, not cruel but consuming. He looked at me as if no one else existed, as if my very soul had been marked without permission. It was the smallest gesture, fingers curling slightly, but my breath stilled. Power rippled through the air, subtle, electric, like the forest itself bent toward him. A black crow swooped from the trees, circling once above his head before vanishing. Celine's hand tightened on my arm. "What are you staring at?" she hissed, her voice sugar to the crowd, like poison to me. I blinked. He was gone. But the air still hummed. My skin still burned where his gaze had pinned me. Celine studied me, suspicion narrowing her eyes. "Careful, sister. People will think you envy me." I tore from her grasp and fled, lungs aching, vision blurred. I did not stop until the forest swallowed me whole. The moment I crossed into its shadows, the world shifted. Birds silenced. Wind died. The silence was not empty. It was waiting. And then, his voice. It was deep, velvet dark, not from the air but from everywhere at once, curling into my bones. "Little wolf." I froze. My pulse thundered. "They do not see you, but I do." I spun, eyes raking the trees, but there was nothing, only shadow, only breathless silence. Yet the presence wrapped around me, undeniable. "Who are you?" I whispered, though I already knew. A low chuckle stirred the air, dark and patient. "You already belong to me." The forest shivered. My knees weakened. The air tasted of ash and thunder. I collapsed against a tree, my breath tearing through me, my heart a storm. I pressed a trembling hand to my lips, as though I could hold the words inside, as though repeating them aloud would make them true. Chapter 4. The Claim in the Shadows. The forest kept its silence long after the dark Alpha's voice vanished. I remained against the oak, chest rising and falling in uneven waves, my pulse still echoing the memory of his words. "You already belong to me." I should have denied it, should have rejected the claim, cast it from me like the lie of a cursed shadow. But the truth was simpler and far more dangerous. Some part of me had recognized him, not with my mind, not with reason, with my wolf. Her silence now was not one of protest. It was the silence of recognition, an animal bowing before a presence it could not deny. I pressed my palms into my eyes, willing myself to breathe. "No," I whispered, "no one owns me." But the forest still tasted of ash and thunder, and in my bones the words rang hollow. By the time I returned to the pack grounds, the celebration had shifted indoors. The great hall pulsed with music and voices, torches blazing against stone. Shadows danced across banners etched with the sigil of our line, the crescent moon, silver against black. I slipped through the crowd, unseen as always. But tonight, every gaze felt like it lingered too long, suspicious, sharp. Celine's eyes found me across the hall, narrowing with something like accusation. I turned away, moving toward the long tables at the edge where food lay untouched. "Leora," I stiffened. Adrian's voice. He stood before me, taller in the torchlight than memory allowed, his broad shoulders rigid, his dark hair falling in deliberate disarray. His eyes, storm-grey and piercing, searched mine with something too conflicted to name. For a moment I saw him as he once was, the boy who had trained with me in the forest, who had promised with his silence that he would never forget me. But that boy was gone. "You've been different," he said quietly, keeping his voice low so Celine would not hear. "Since last night." A bitter laugh rose in my throat. "You noticed?" His jaw clenched. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Pretend none of this matters." His voice roughened, breaking through his calm facade. "You think I didn't see your face when he chose her, when he marked her?" The words hung unspoken between us, heavy and choking. I forced my expression into steel. "You made your choice, Adrian. Whatever you think you saw doesn't matter anymore." For a heartbeat, something flared in his eyes. Regret, guilt, maybe even longing. But Celine's laughter peeled across the hall, and his shoulders stiffened, the alpha mask returning. "She's looking for you," he said curtly, turning away. I let out the breath I hadn't realized I was holding. That night, sleep came fitful and shallow. The moonlight pooled across my chamber floor, pale and cold, when the dream began. I stood in the same forest where I had heard his voice. The trees stretched endlessly, their branches clawing at a sky drenched in blood-red clouds. Ash rained lightly from above, stinging against my skin. And then he stepped from the shadows, tall, powerful, his presence consuming the world around him. He wore darkness like a mantle, leathers molding to his frame, his stride unhurried, as if he had all eternity to close the space between us. The dark Alpha. His skin was bronze dark, his jaw sharp as a blade, his golden eyes gleaming like molten suns. They fixed on me with such intensity that I felt stripped bare, my thoughts scattered to dust. "You run from them," he murmured, his voice velvet smoke, "but your soul runs to me." My breath caught. This isn't real. He reached out. His hand, large and calloused, brushed against my cheek. Heat surged through me, burning and electrifying all at once. My wolf shuddered, not in fear, but in recognition so fierce it nearly dropped me to my knees. "Tell me it isn't real," he challenged softly, eyes searching mine, "and I will vanish." I couldn't. The words tangled in my throat. He smiled then, dark and knowing, and the forest itself seemed to bow beneath the weight of it. "You are mine, little wolf. No bond, no sister, no Alpha can take you from me." The dream dissolved into flame, heat licking across my skin until I jolted awake, drenched in sweat. My pulse thundered, my lips still tingling as though his touch had been real. A mark, faint, almost invisible, but there. A crescent burn, hot against my skin, pulsing with some strange rhythm that was not my own. I gasped, pressing my fingers against it, my heart slamming. He had touched me, not in dream, in truth. By dawn, the whispers had already begun. Two of the kitchen women paused as I entered for water, their eyes darting to my neck before they lowered their voices. Children stilled when I passed, wide-eyed, before racing to their mothers. Celine found me near the well, her smile a dagger. "What have you done, sister?" she asked sweetly, though her eyes burned with fury. I touched my throat instinctively. "Nothing." She stepped closer, close enough that her perfume nearly choked me. Her fingers brushed the faint burn on my skin, and her lips curved in triumph. "Someone has claimed you," she whispered. But it wasn't Adrian. Her laugh, sharp and victorious, split the air. And for the first time I didn't feel powerless. Because she was right. Someone had claimed me, someone stronger. And I knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, that my story was no longer hers to steal. Chapter 5. The Mark of Shadows. The courtyard was alive with morning chatter, voices colliding like waves against stone walls. Children darted between the pillars, their laughter shrill until hushed by sharp-tongued mothers. Warriors stood at the edge of the training grounds, their blades catching the weak dawn light. And me, I felt every eye. The mark burned faintly at the base of my throat, hidden by my collar. Yet whispers spread as though they could see straight through fabric and flesh into the truth stamped on my skin. Celine had not confronted me again since dawn, but I could feel her watching. She lingered near the steps of the hall, draped in silk that shimmered like moonlight, Adrian at her side. Her fingers curled possessively around his arm, but her smile never reached her eyes. I poured water into the trough for the horses, focusing on the simple rhythm. My hands trembled, though I forced them still. Then a voice, low and clipped, "You've been marked." I froze. The water sloshed over the rim, darkening the earth. Slowly I turned. It was Kalen, one of the eldest warriors, scarred from years of border patrol. His eyes, a steely brown, fixed on my throat as though he saw through the fabric shielding it. "I don't know what you mean," I said carefully, His lips twisted. The others may not sense it yet, but I do. That's no ordinary bruise. His voice dropped further. That's a claiming. The words fell like stones into my chest. By whom? He pressed, though suspicion already sharpened his gaze. It isn't our Alpha. His glance flicked across the courtyard, where Adrian stood beneath Celine's grip. I gripped the bucket tighter, blood rushing in my ears. You're mistaken. Kaylin's mouth curved in something between pity and warning. No mistake, girl. The wolf in me knows it. Whoever he is, he's strong, stronger than Adrian. Before I could speak, he turned and walked away, his limp heavy in the dust. But his words lingered, stronger than Adrian, stronger than the Alpha. The council meeting was called at midday. The pack gathered in the great hall, filling the benches beneath the high-arched ceiling. Smoke from the braziers curled upward, staining the banners with a faint haze. Adrian sat at the head, Celine at his side. I remained near the back, invisible as ever, or so I thought. Reports from the eastern border, one of the scouts announced. Tracks, large, not ours. A murmur spread across the room. Not rogues, Kaylin interrupted, his gravelly voice carrying. This is something else. His gaze slid to me, deliberate. A force older, stronger. My stomach clenched. Adrian's jaw tightened. Explain, but Kaylin only shrugged. Ask the girl. The hall turned. 100 eyes fixed on me, hot and heavy. I forced myself to rise. My knees felt weak, but I kept my spine straight. I don't know what you mean, don't lie, Celine's voice, sweet as poisoned honey. She stood gracefully, her smile sharp. Show them. Before I could step back, she moved, swift, merciless, grabbing my collar and yanking it down. The hall gasped as the faint crescent mark gleamed against my skin, shimmering like an ember beneath flesh. The silence was suffocating. Adrian's face hardened, unreadable. His fists clenched on the armrests, knuckles white. Celine's laughter broke the stillness, triumphant and cruel. See? She purred. My sister couldn't wait for scraps. She let herself be branded like a enough. Adrian's voice thundered through the hall, silencing even her. For a moment his gaze locked on mine. There was fury there, yes, but also something else, confusion, hurt, something he could not name. The council erupted. Some whispered of curses, others of forbidden bonds. Fear laced every voice. I stood frozen, heat crawling up my throat, shame burning hot and sharp. Yet beneath it all, a thread of defiance wove through me. Because the mark was real, and it was power. That night, I fled the hall before the voices could consume me. The forest called me, as it always did. The wind tore at my hair, carrying the scent of smoke and storm. And he was there, not in dream this time, in truth. The dark Alpha stepped from the shadows like he had been waiting for me all along. His presence sucked the air from the clearing, his aura commanding, terrible, magnetic. The silver in his cloak caught the moonlight as he moved closer, golden eyes glowing like suns against the dark. You let them see, he murmured, voice low, dangerous. I didn't. My throat tightened. Celine. His hand lifted, silencing me. His touch hovered just above my cheek, not quite making contact, but enough that my skin burned. They will not take you from me, he said, each word carved in steel. Do you understand? I don't belong to you, I whispered, though my wolf trembled, betraying me. A smile ghosted his lips, sharp and knowing. Then why does your wolf bow every time I speak? My breath caught. My body betrayed me, shivering under his voice. He leaned closer, the heat of him suffocating, the pull of him undeniable. You fight it, he said softly, golden gaze flicking down to my lips. But soon, little wolf, you will beg me not to let you go. Before I could answer, he vanished, dissolving into shadows as though he had never been. I sank to my knees, the mark on my throat burning like fire, my pulse frantic. And though fear should have ruled me, something else had taken root. Not dread, not shame, but hunger. Chapter 6. Whispers of banished blood. The hall smelled of smoke and fear. Even after the council had scattered into the night, the air inside still carried the weight of their whispers, their verdicts that had not yet been spoken aloud, but hung like an executioner's blade. My body ached with the memory of Celine's hand tearing down my collar, the searing heat of every pair of eyes as they drank in the forbidden truth, the mark, glowing faint as an ember, alive under my skin. They wanted answers. They wanted someone to blame, and in packs, blame is heavier than blood. I sat alone now at the edge of the training yard, hands gripping the cold stone, watching as the moon dipped lower. My wolf shifted uneasily inside me, pacing, restless, as though expecting something, or someone. The sound of boots on gravel reached me before the scent did. Adrian. I didn't turn when he stopped a few feet away. His silence weighed heavier than his presence. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled, but threaded with something dangerous. "You should have told me." I stared at the dirt, swallowing hard. "I didn't ask for this. You think that matters?" His words were sharp, but not cruel. They cut because they were true. The pack is already divided. Some of them believe you're cursed. Some think you've betrayed us to another Alpha. And Celine... He stopped himself, jaw tightening. Celine is feeding the fire. A bitter laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Of course she is. She lives for it. Adrian stepped closer, so near that his shadow merged with mine. Who is he? The question twisted in the air. I forced myself to meet his gaze. His eyes, storm grey under the moonlight, searched me like he wanted to rip the truth straight from my bones. "I don't know," I whispered. "Leora." His voice broke on my name, unguarded for a flicker of a second. "That mark, it doesn't just happen. He chose you." Something inside me snapped. "Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I asked for some stranger to burn his claim into me?" My voice shook, but it wasn't weakness, it was fury. "You gave yourself to Celine without hesitation. Did you think I would just stand in the shadows forever?" Silence. His jaw clenched, throat working. For a long moment he said nothing. And then, softer, raw, "You were never in the shadows. Not to me." The words landed like a knife twisted in my chest. Before I could answer, a shout broke across the yard. Kalen limped forward, his face grim, dragging two younger scouts behind him. "Alpha!" Adrian tore his gaze from me, straightening. "What is it?" Kalen shoved the scouts forward. They saw him. My stomach dropped. The younger of the two, barely more than a boy, stammered. Beyond the river, a figure, tall, cloaked, eyes like fire. The elder added, "We followed, but he vanished, like smoke." A murmur spread from the warriors who had gathered near the yard. Fear sharpened the night. Adrian's face darkened, though his voice stayed calm. "Double patrols. No one crosses the border without my command." Kalen's eyes flicked toward me. "And the girl?" The question snapped through the air like a whip. I rose slowly, heat crawling up my throat. "The girl can speak for herself." Kalen's lip curled. "If he's marked you, you're his tether. You'll draw him back. That makes you a threat. Or it makes me the key," I shot back. The silence that followed was jagged, dangerous. Adrian's gaze lingered on me, unreadable. Celine wasn't there, but I could almost hear her laughter already, her poison slipping into every ear. Adrian finally said, "No one touches her." His voice was steel. She stays under my protection until I say otherwise." The crowd shifted, uneasy. Kaelin's frown deepened, but he bowed, lips tight. "As you command, Alpha." But the look he threw me promised this was far from over. That night sleep would not come. I lay awake in my chamber, the walls pressing close, shadows crawling across the ceiling. My wolf stirred, restless. The mark at my throat burned hotter with each passing hour. And then I heard it, a whisper. Not outside, inside, come. I bolted upright, heart hammering. The room was empty, but the air thickened, heavy with the scent of smoke and storm. I stumbled to the window. Beyond the tree line, the forest flickered with strange light, embers floating against the darkness, calling to me. Before I knew it, my feet carried me through the halls, past the guards who strangely didn't stir, into the night air. The forest swallowed me whole, the world behind me falling silent. He was waiting. The dark Alpha stood in the clearing, golden eyes piercing through the smoke, no longer a shadow, no longer a dream. He was flesh, bone, danger, power. His cloak billowed as if alive, embers swirling around him though the air was still. "You shouldn't be here," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. His gaze slid to my throat, the mark pulsing faintly. "And yet you came." The forest hummed with his presence, alive and heavy. My wolf pushed forward, desperate, trembling, bowing though I tried to resist. He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, predatory. "They fear you now. They whisper about banishment." His voice curled low, intoxicating. "But you were never meant to belong to them." "I'm not yours," I breathed, though the fire in my chest betrayed me. His hand brushed my jaw, fingers grazing skin like lightning. The touch seared and soothed all at once. My pulse throbbed against his palm, betraying every denial. "You are mine," he murmured, "and when the blood moon rises, the whole pack will know it." I should have pulled away. I should have screamed. But my wolf pressed forward, spine bowing, heart thrumming in wild surrender. And for the first time, I let her. Chapter 7. The Schemes of Silver Tongues. The morning broke cold and grey, clouds smothering the sky until even the sun seemed reluctant to rise. The pack's courtyard was hushed, subdued, as though the very earth had overheard the whispers of the night and recoiled from them. I walked with my head down, the weight of every eye burning into my back. Mothers tugged their children closer, warriors paused mid-sparring to watch me, and even the elders, usually too wrapped in their ancient disputes to care for gossip, tilted their heads as though I carried death on my shoulders. The mark on my throat throbbed faintly, a pulse of heat beneath my skin. Last night's encounter with the dark Alpha still lingered, like smoke clinging to cloth. His words were etched into me as deeply as the brand itself. "When the blood moon rises, the whole pack will know it." Celine's voice pierced the silence like a blade. "There she is." She descended the stone steps of the hall with all the grace of a queen, her gown a cascade of silver threads that shimmered even under the dull sky. Adrian followed behind her, his expression carved in stone, though the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. Celine stopped before me, her smile razor-sharp. "You should be grateful, sister. Few ever achieve notoriety as quickly as you a single night, and you've become the subject of every whisper." I met her gaze, refusing to bow my head. "Isn't that what you always wanted? To make me the villain so you could play the heroine?" Her eyes narrowed, though her smile never faltered. "Oh no, Leora. I don't need to make you anything. You're doing quite well on your own." The crowd chuckled nervously, hanging on her every poisoned word. Adrian's jaw tightened. Enough. Celine's gaze flicked toward him, softening instantly, as though she hadn't just slit me open with words. I only mean to protect you, my Alpha. If her mark is a bond to another, then it endangers all of us. The murmurs rose again, fear and suspicion mixing like oil and fire. Perhaps, she continued sweetly, banishment is the only safe choice. My wolf snarled inside me, but I held her back, forcing myself to stand tall. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady. Of course you'd say that. You've always been afraid that if anyone saw me clearly, they'd see through you. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Celine's smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, before her mask snapped back into place. Adrian stepped forward then, placing himself between us. His voice carried the weight of command. There will be no banishment. His eyes swept the pack, silencing the whispers. Leora remains under my protection. Celine's hand tightened on his arm. Adrian. I said no. His tone left no room for argument, though his face betrayed the storm brewing beneath. Celine drew back, her expression smooth again, but I saw the fury flash in her eyes before she turned, hiding it. The tension cracked like thunder overhead. I knew then this wasn't finished. Celine would not rest until she had me destroyed. That night I found no peace. The chamber felt suffocating, the walls pressing in, thick with the scent of judgment and betrayal. My wolf stirred restlessly, ears pinned back, as though waiting for a storm. And it came. The air shifted, smoke, fire, the electric taste of power. The dark Alpha appeared in the corner, as if he had always been there, carved from shadow and flame. His golden eyes burned in the dim light, and my wolf dropped low inside me, tail tucked, body trembling in submission. You're letting them tear at you, he said, voice like molten steel. My fists clenched. They're my pack. He tilted his head, a dangerous smile curving his mouth. Are they? Tell me, little wolf, when did they last protect you? The truth stung. I thought of Celine's schemes, the pack's whispers, even Adrian's silence when Celine tried to strip me of my place. His hand brushed my cheek, thumb grazing the edge of my jaw. My breath caught to spite myself. I could end this, he murmured. One word, and your sister's silvery tongue would never poison your name again. One command, and your pack would kneel to you. You think I want power? My voice shook with anger, though my body betrayed me, leaning subtly into his touch. I want peace. His smile sharpened. Peace is for the dead. Power is for the living. He leaned closer, his scent filling me, smoke, storm, wildness. My heart hammered, torn between terror and longing. His lips hovered near mine, not quite touching, a breath away. You belong to me, Leora, he whispered. The sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll stop bleeding for those who never deserved you. My wolf howled inside, torn in two. Part of me wanted to shove him away, scream my defiance. Another part, the darker, hungrier part, wanted to surrender, to feel what it would mean to stop fighting him. Before I could answer, a sharp knock shattered the moment. Leora? Adrian's voice. The dark Alpha vanished, dissolving into shadow so fast the air seemed to collapse around me. I stumbled back, breath ragged. The door creaked open, and Adrian stepped in, his eyes narrowing instantly as though he sensed what had just happened. His gaze lingered on my flushed skin, my trembling hands. What happened here? His voice was low, dangerous. I couldn't answer, not without unraveling everything. His eyes softened, just slightly, as though he could see the battle raging inside me. He stepped closer, close enough that his warmth brushed mine. Whatever this is, he said, voice rough, you're not alone in it. Not anymore. And for the first time, his hand reached for mine. not as Alpha, not as duty, but as Adrian. My wolf trembled, caught between two Alphas, one who had once been my promised mate, and the other whose darkness burned like fire in my blood. And I knew then, no matter what choice I made, someone would burn. Chapter 8. The Council of Shadows. The pack hall was colder than usual that night. Torches burned low along the carved stone walls, their light wavering like uncertain breath. Above us, the carved ceiling loomed with the faces of ancient Alphas, guardians of legacy, watching as though judging whether we were worthy of carrying their blood. I walked into that chamber with my head held high, but every step felt like sinking into a trap. The whispers had grown sharper since Celine's display yesterday. I could hear them slither from the lips of warriors, elders, even the Omegas who usually dared not speak at all. She is marked by another. She carries danger on her skin. She will bring ruin. Adrian strode beside me, his shoulders broad, jaw locked, his presence swallowing the murmurs until silence reclaimed the room. But I knew, even his authority could only dam the flood for so long. At the high table the elders had already gathered, cloaked in wolfskins, their eyes sharp as winter frost. Elder Malric, the eldest among them, leaned heavily on his carved staff, his voice raspy as he spoke. Alpha Adrian, you summoned this council. Speak. Adrian's gaze swept the room, lingering briefly on me before returning to the elders. You have all heard the whispers. I will not tolerate divisions in this pack. Leora is under my protection. She will not be cast out. She will not be condemned. Gasps rippled across the chamber, but before relief could stir in me, Celine's silken voice cut through like a dagger. And yet, she said, rising gracefully from her seat at Adrian's right, you cannot deny what is plain before us all. She is marked, not by you, not by this pack, but by another Alpha, an enemy Alpha. Tell me, how can such a bond not endanger us? The elders murmured their agreement, heads nodding like vultures scenting blood. I felt heat crawl up my throat. I didn't ask for this mark. Celine's lips curled. And yet you wear it. My wolf bristled inside me, claws scratching at my insides. Fight her, tear her lies apart. But before I could speak, Elder Malric lifted his staff. The hall silenced instantly. There is but one truth, he rasped. The blood moon approaches, and with it, the ancient law awakens. The moon will reveal what bonds are true, and what bonds are cursed. A shiver spread through me. I had heard the old tales. On the night of the blood moon, the moon goddess revealed fates with cruel clarity, mates exposed, betrayals unveiled, lies stripped bare. Celine's eyes glittered, victory gleaming in their depths. Adrian's voice cut through. Then so be it. On the blood moon, truth will show itself. Until then, no word of banishment will be spoken again. The elders muttered, displeased, but Malric struck his staff once more, ending the council. The decision was sealed. My fate was bound to a night I could neither stop nor outrun. Later, I slipped from the hall into the cold embrace of night. The courtyard was empty, the wind thick with pine and frost. I pressed a hand to the mark at my throat, feeling its faint burn beneath my skin. The air shifted. He was there. The dark Alpha emerged from the shadows, his golden eyes catching the torchlight like molten fire. He leaned casually against the stone archway, as though the pack's stronghold were his own. You should thank me, he murmured, voice a velvet growl. For what? I whispered, heart thundering. For making them afraid. His gaze roved over me, hungry, unyielding. Fear is power, little wolf. They wouldn't whisper your name if they didn't feel it in their bones, that you are not theirs anymore. I swallowed hard, torn between fury and something far more dangerous. I don't want to be theirs if it means I'm only ever a pawn in Celine's games. His smile curved, sharp and knowing. Then stop letting them use you. He stepped closer, the shadows clinging to him like a cloak. His hand rose, fingers brushing the mark he had left. The heat flared, my wolf whimpering low in submission even as my human side trembled in defiance. "You feel it, don't you?" he whispered. "This bond, this pull. No matter how much you deny it, you can't escape it. You are mine. And when the blood moon rises, the goddess herself will declare it." I wanted to shove him away. I wanted to scream at him, to demand he release me. But the words stuck in my throat, tangled with the truth I was too afraid to speak. Instead I whispered, "And if you're wrong?" His eyes burned brighter, a low growl curling from his chest. "Then I will tear destiny itself apart until it bends to me." Before I could answer, the courtyard doors swung open. Adrian stood there, fury etched across his face. His voice was a whip. "Get away from her." The dark Alpha didn't move. He smiled, slow and taunting, his golden gaze flicking between us. Interesting. The Alpha who would claim her, and the Alpha who already has. "Tell me, Leora." His eyes locked on mine, devouring. "Which one do you tremble for?" And then, like smoke, he vanished. The silence he left behind was heavier than stone. Adrian's breath was ragged, his hands fisted at his sides. His eyes burned with a storm I couldn't decipher. Rage, jealousy, desperation. He stepped toward me, voice low, breaking. "Leora, don't let him have you." My heart cracked under the weight of it. Because no matter what I said, no matter which truth I chose, someone's world would break apart. Chapter 9. Whispers Before the Moon. The night after the council was heavy, restless. No one in the pack seemed to sleep. Doors creaked open at odd hours, footsteps shuffled along corridors, and even the wolves pacing the borders growled at shadows that weren't there. The blood moon had started to press its weight into the air, thickening the scent of iron and pine, twisting dreams into nightmares, but Celine slept peacefully. I knew because I passed her chambers that night on my way back from the courtyard. Through the slightly parted doors, I glimpsed her figure sprawled across silk sheets, her hair spread like molten gold against black pillows, her lips curved in a soft smile. She had nothing to fear. She had woven her lies so tightly around this pack, they believed her untouchable. And yet, as I moved past, I caught something else, a shadow slipping into her room. I froze, pressing myself against the stone wall. The figure was tall, cloaked, his staff tapping softly as he entered. Elder Malric. My blood chilled. Celine rose lazily from the bed as if she had been waiting. She draped a robe over her shoulders and poured wine into 2 silver goblets. "I thought you'd come sooner," she said softly, her voice like velvet smoke. Malric closed the door behind him, leaning heavily on his staff. His face was carved from years of bitterness, but his eyes gleamed with something younger, ambition. "The pack grows uneasy," he rasped. "Adrian has made it clear he will protect her. That girl," his lips curled, "but we both know she is dangerous." Celine handed him a goblet, smiling like a queen granting favor. "Dangerous? No. Weak. But dangerous things are often born from weakness. That is why we must crush her before the blood moon reveals more than it should." I pressed closer to the wall, straining to hear every word. "She bears the mark of another Alpha," Malric said. "The Council will not forgive it." "And yet Adrian shields her," Celine replied, her voice dripping with contempt. "He would burn the whole pack down before letting her fall." That is why we must make the goddess herself condemn her. Malric sipped the wine, his gnarled fingers tightening around the cup. The goddess reveals truth, not lies. Celine leaned in, her lips near his ear. Truth is only what people believe. If we prepare the ritual, if we ensure the right offerings, the moon will show what we command it to. She will be exposed as cursed. Adrian will be forced to choose the pack over her, and when he does, her smile sharpened, he will finally be mine. Malric's silence stretched long. Then he nodded slowly. I will call upon the seer. She owes me her life. She will bend the visions to serve us. They clinked goblets, sealing the conspiracy. I slipped away into the shadows before they could sense me, my hands trembling, my wolf howling inside. I found Adrian in the war chamber, standing over a table covered in maps and patrol reports. The firelight caught the scars along his arms, his muscles tense as he braced himself on the wood. You shouldn't be awake, he said without looking up. I couldn't sleep, I whispered, stepping closer. For a long time he didn't speak. Then he finally lifted his gaze, his storm-grey eyes locking onto mine. They weren't the eyes of the Alpha then. They were the eyes of a man worn thin by choices no one should have to make. I saw him, he said. His jaw tightened. In the courtyard, touching you. Heat rushed to my cheeks. It wasn't... He marked you, Adrian cut in, his voice breaking. He shoved the maps aside, the papers scattering like startled birds. And no matter how much I tell myself I can fight it, I feel it every time I look at you. Every time you breathe. The bond is there, and it's killing me. My throat tightened. Adrian, his hands gripped the table until his knuckles whitened. I should let you go. I should push you from this pack, let him take you, so at least I won't risk losing everything to the darkness in his shadow. But I can't. I can't let you go. I stepped closer, the air between us charged, brittle. Then don't. His eyes searched mine, raw and unguarded for the first time. The Alpha's walls cracked, and I saw the man underneath, lonely, loyal to a fault, terrified of failing everyone he loved. The silence stretched, heavy with all the words we hadn't spoken. Then, slowly, his hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from my face. His touch lingered, trembling. I don't know how to save you, he whispered. You don't have to, I whispered back. Just don't let me face this alone. For a moment it felt like we could lean into each other, that the world might allow us this fragile, stolen truth. But then a growl ripped through the chamber. He stood in the doorway, shadows clinging to him like a cloak. His golden eyes burned, fixed on me, and behind them lay something fierce and broken. You should know the truth, he said, his voice low, dangerous, before you let him chain you to his lies. Adrian bristled, stepping in front of me, but the dark Alpha's gaze pinned me, pulling me forward like a tide. The room spun, and suddenly I wasn't in the war chamber anymore. I was standing in a burned forest, the trees charred black, ash falling like snow. The air reeked of blood and ruin. And beside me, him, younger, his face unscarred by bitterness, his eyes softer but already carrying storms. This was my pack, he said quietly. Before they called me cursed, before they hunted me like a beast, figures emerged from the smoke, wolves tearing into each other, fire consuming their den, children crying before being silenced forever. They betrayed me, he whispered, his voice breaking. My mate, my blood. They chose lies over truth, and so I became what they feared. I became darkness. Because darkness doesn't betray you, it simply is. The vision wavered, his voice pressing into my bones. But you are different. You are the only thing in this world that still burns. His hand cupped my cheek, warm and trembling with an emotion he wouldn't name. When the blood moon rises, you'll see. You'll know where you belong. With me, always. The vision shattered. I stumbled back into the war chamber, gasping. Adrian caught me, his grip steady. The dark Alpha was gone, but his words lingered, carved into me like a scar. Chapter 10. The seer's lies, the warrior's truth. The wind shifted before dawn. It wasn't just air moving through the pines, it was something heavier, charged, as if the forest itself bent beneath an invisible weight. Wolves on patrol stilled, ears pricking. Birds went silent. Even the flames in the torches along the courtyard sputtered lower, bowing to the presence that moved closer. The seer had arrived. I stood beside Adrian at the gates, the early morning mist curling around us. His posture was rigid, his jaw clenched so tightly I could almost hear the grind of his teeth. Celine stood to his other side, a vision in emerald silk, feigning serenity, but her eyes glittered with restless triumph. She had orchestrated this moment. The carriage that rolled into the courtyard was unlike anything I'd seen. Its wood was painted black and carved with symbols older than the pack, its wheels creaking under weight that seemed too heavy for wood and metal alone. Two pale, massive wolves pulled it, their eyes clouded, unseeing, and from within emerged the seer. She was smaller than I expected, bent with age, her skin the color of paper stretched too thin over bone. But her presence filled the space, spilling into the courtyard like smoke. A necklace of wolf teeth clattered softly against her chest as she leaned on her staff, its head crowned with a shard of obsidian that pulsed faintly, like a beating heart. Every wolf in the courtyard bowed their head, even Adrian, but not me. Her gaze snapped toward me instantly, white, blind eyes, and yet they saw me. No, more than that. They pierced into me, through me, leaving me cold. "The cursed one," she croaked, her voice a rasp that sent shivers through the air. "The girl marked by shadows." A murmur rippled through the pack. Celine smiled faintly, her hand brushing Adrian's arm in a show of comfort that was anything but innocent. "She has come at the goddess's will," Celine said sweetly. "To reveal the truth, to keep us all safe." I felt Adrian stiffen beside me, torn. His loyalty to tradition demanded he heed the seer, but his loyalty to me, whatever it was becoming, made his silence heavy, dangerous. The seer shuffled forward until she stood inches from me. Her breath smelled of ash and roots. She raised a trembling hand, the tips of her fingers stopping just short of my cheek. "You carry two bonds," she whispered. "The one you were denied, and the one that will consume you." My chest tightened. She tilted her head, her sightless eyes unblinking. "One will save your soul, the other will break the world." And then she laughed, a shrill, cracked sound that sent wolves flinching back. That night, Adrian summoned me to his chambers. His face was pale, his eyes storm-dark. He paced before the fire like a man standing on a cliff, watching the sea rise. "You shouldn't listen to her," I said quietly. His head snapped toward me, his expression raw. "How can I not? She has never been wrong, Leora. Every prophecy she's spoken has come to pass. Because people shape themselves around her words," I shot back. "They make them true because they fear her too much to resist." Adrian's fists clenched. "And if she's right, if you are cursed," the words struck deeper than I expected. My voice faltered. "Do you believe that?" His silence was a blade, and into that silence stepped Celine. She entered without knocking, her gown flowing like liquid moonlight, her hair crowned with a silver circlet. She looked between us, her smile delicate and devastating. "I heard voices," she said softly, though her eyes gleamed. I worry for you, Adrian. You bear so much, and some burdens cannot be carried without breaking." Adrian looked away, ashamed of something I couldn't name. Celine stepped closer to him, her fingers brushing his arm as if she had every right to touch what was mine. "Let me help," she murmured. "The goddess has always favored me. I can guide you through this storm, but only if you let go of what holds you back." Her gaze flicked to me, sharp as a dagger. I stood frozen, rage burning under my skin. But before I could speak, Adrian stepped between us, his voice strained. "Enough, Celine." For a heartbeat, her smile cracked. But then she dipped her head gracefully, retreating, but not without victory glimmering in her eyes. Later that night, I fled to the outer walls, needing air, needing distance. The moon was thin above, its glow pale against the press of coming storms. That's when I saw him. A man leaned against the battlements, his cloak pulled tight, his face half hidden. The torchlight caught the scars that marred his cheek, claw marks that had never healed clean. His hair was dark, streaked with grey despite the youth still etched in his eyes. He gave a humourless laugh. "Fair enough." He stepped closer, and I saw the mark on his neck, faded but unmistakable, a bond mark, and not just any bond mark, the same golden hue that haunted my dreams. "You knew him," I whispered. The warrior's jaw tightened. I fought beside him, before they called him the Dark Alpha. Before betrayal burned his pack to ash, my heart pounded. "Tell me." His gaze lifted to the horizon, where storm clouds gathered. He wasn't always darkness. He was a leader, fierce and loyal. But loyalty breeds betrayal when envy festers. His mate chose another. His council turned on him. And when the moon rose red, they tried to kill him. He survived, but not without blood. He looked at me then, eyes heavy with a weight I couldn't name. "You're the first thing that's made him want to be more than shadow in years. That makes you his salvation, or his destruction." A chill slid down my spine. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. The warrior's lips curved faintly, bitter. "Because I owe him my life, and I see the way he looks at you. When the blood moon rises tomorrow night, you'll have to choose, him or this pack." Lightning cracked across the sky, throwing his scars into sharp relief. And then he melted into the shadows, leaving me trembling, alone with the storm. Chapter 11. The night before the blood moon. The pack didn't sleep. The eve of the blood moon was a thing whispered about in tales, dreaded in prophecy, and cursed in memory. Wolves moved through the stronghold like shadows, their movements frantic but hushed, as if even their own voices might summon disaster. Every torch was lit, every wardstone polished, every blade sharpened. The air was too heavy, charged with static and dread. Even the children did not cry. They seemed to understand. Something vast and terrible was waiting just beyond the horizon, and through it all, I moved like a ghost. I felt their stares on me, sharp, suspicious, frightened. Whispers followed wherever I went, cursed, marked, tainted. My skin crawled beneath their judgment, but I kept my chin high. If I faltered, they would win. I found Adrian in the council chamber, bent over scrolls with exhaustion carved into his face. His hair was damp from rain, his shoulders hunched, his fingers trembling as they traced protective runes drawn across parchment. "You're overworking yourself," I said softly. He didn't look up. "If I stop, the pack will fall apart." I stepped closer, watching the storm in his grey eyes. "The pack will fall apart if you stop trusting yourself." His head snapped up, raw emotion flashing across his face. "Do you think I don't hear it, Leora? Every whisper, every look, they're waiting for me to condemn you. And the worst part?" His voice cracked. A part of me wonders if they're right. The words struck like claws to my chest. I should have been angry. I should have walked away. But instead, I saw what lay beneath his confession, not malice, but fear. Fear of losing control, fear of choosing wrong, fear of failing everyone who leaned on him. "You've carried this pack so long, Adrian," I whispered, placing my hand over his. His skin was warm, calloused, trembling. "But who carries you?" For a heartbeat, silence stretched between us. His gaze softened, his shoulders lowered, and in that crack of vulnerability I saw the man, not the Alpha. But before the moment could deepen, the doors opened. Celine. Her gown shimmered silver, her hair braided with moonstones. She looked every bit the chosen heir, the darling of prophecy, and the satisfaction in her eyes told me she'd seen enough of our closeness to twist it like a blade. "Adrian," she purred, her smile delicate, "the seer wishes to speak with you, alone." Her eyes flicked to me, sharp, triumphant, promising war. Adrian hesitated, his jaw tightening. But duty won, as it always did. He pulled his hand from mine and followed her, leaving me in the echo of silence. Later, when the moon had climbed higher, I crept to the seer's chambers. The air inside was thick with incense, the smoke curling in patterns that seemed to twist into shapes of wolves, fangs, blood. The old woman sat cross-legged on the floor, her white eyes rolled back as her lips whispered to shadows. "You should not be here," she rasped without turning her head. My pulse quickened. "Then why does it feel like I was meant to be?" Her laugh was brittle, jagged. "Fate loves irony." I stepped closer, refusing to let fear root me. "Tell me the truth. What did you see?" Her blind eyes snapped to mine. "I saw two Alphas, one bound to you by light, the other by darkness. Both will fight for your soul. But the goddess is cruel. She gives no clear path. Whichever you choose, blood will drown this pack." My breath caught. She leaned forward, her face close enough for me to smell the rot of her breath. "But there is one truth you cannot escape. When the blood moon rises, your heart will betray you, and once it does, all will burn." Her laughter followed me as I fled, echoing like a curse. "You look pale," he said. "What did she tell you?" I swallowed. "That no matter what I choose, destruction follows." He gave a grim smile. "Prophecies are cages. They bend because we let them, but the dark Alpha, he doesn't believe in cages." My chest tightened. "Tell me who he really is." The warrior's gaze turned inward, haunted. He was the bravest of us, the fiercest, but love broke him. His mate betrayed him with his closest brother, and the council turned their backs when he begged for justice. They called him dangerous, unstable. They tried to strip his alphahood, but when they raised their blades, he raised fire. I shivered. He killed to survive, and once blood was spilled, there was no going back. They call him cursed, but he is only what they made him. He swore never to love again. Until you... I froze, his words a blow I hadn't prepared for. The warrior's eyes narrowed. "He doesn't just want you, girl. He needs you. And need makes even gods dangerous." Lightning flared across the horizon. The storm was closer now. That night, I dreamed of him. The dark Alpha stood in a clearing drenched in moonlight, his golden eyes blazing against the storm. He looked every inch the predator, tall, broad, carved from shadow and fire. But when he reached for me, his hand trembled. "I don't ask you to love me," he whispered, his voice raw, breaking. "I only ask you to see me." My heart twisted. "I have been hunted, broken, damned," he continued, stepping closer until the heat of him surrounded me. "But you make me want to be more, and tomorrow night the moon will force you to choose. Him or me, light or shadow." His hand brushed my cheek, feather soft, aching with hunger and reverence. and then his lips grazed mine, barely a touch, yet it seared into me like a vow. Chapter 12. The blood moon rises. The sky bled. The night had not yet reached its peak, but already the moon hung swollen and red, its glow spilling across the land like a wound that refused to heal. The forest groaned under the weight of it, branches bent, leaves shriveled, animals fled in silence. The world seemed to hold its breath. Inside the stronghold, the pack gathered in the great stone courtyard, a sea of faces caught between awe and terror. Fires roared in iron braziers, their light barely able to compete with the crimson glow that painted every stone, every face, every shadow. I stood in the center, alone. The ritual circle had been drawn in ash and blood. Wolves pressed against the perimeter, their gazes sharp, waiting to see whether I would rise or fall. My hands trembled, though I forced them still. My skin prickled with the weight of their judgment, but worse than their stares was the one pair of eyes I craved and dreaded all at once. Adrian's. He stood at the head of the circle, tall, resolute, draped in his Alpha's mantle. The light turned his eyes into storms of steel, and though his expression was carved into calm command, I could see the fracture in him. The man who wanted to protect me warred with the Alpha expected to condemn me, and beside him Selene glowed like a goddess. Her gown was woven from silver thread, her lips painted the deep red of the moon itself. She clutched a goblet of consecrated wine, her expression serene, but the glimmer in her eyes was poison. She looked at me not as a sister, but as prey. The seer shuffled forward, her white eyes catching the glow of the moon. She raised her hands, and silence fell. On this night, she rasped, the blood moon descends to strip away all lies, all veils. What is hidden shall be revealed. What is bound shall be tested. What is cursed shall claim its due. Her voice carried like smoke, curling into every ear, every heart. She turned her blind gaze toward me. Leora of the pack, you stand accused of carrying the taint of shadow. The dark Alpha's mark lies upon you. Do you deny it? The courtyard pulsed with expectation. My heart thundered. I could deny it, buy time, soothe their fear. But I remembered her prophecy, when the blood moon rises, your heart will betray you. I lifted my chin. I deny nothing. The shadow follows me, but it does not define me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The seer smiled, her teeth sharp as bone. Then let the goddess decide. They led me to the altar at the heart of the circle. Stone cold beneath my knees, the air thick with incense and smoke. Selene approached, carrying the ceremonial dagger, its blade etched with runes that shimmered against the moonlight. Her voice rang clear, honeyed, venom-laced. If you are pure, the goddess will shield you. If you are cursed, the blade will reveal it. She handed the dagger to Adrian. The weight of silence was unbearable. His hands tightened around the hilt, his jaw clenched, his breath sharp. I could feel the war inside him, the desperate pull between duty and love. Adrian, I whispered, though no one else could hear, whatever you see in me, trust it's real. Our eyes locked, and for a moment I thought he might break, that he might throw the dagger aside, defy the seer, defy them all. But the pack was watching. Selene was watching. The seer was watching. He lifted the blade. A howl split the night, low, triumphant, Selene's lips curling into a smile. Because in that instant, before the blade could touch me, the seer cried out, "The mark awakens!" A brand of fire seared across my collarbone, invisible until that moment. Black, curling, wolf-shaped, it burned against my skin as the moonlight struck me. The crowd screamed, recoiling as if I were plague itself. "She is bound!" the seer shrieked. "The dark Alpha claims her!" Celine stepped forward, her voice thick with false sorrow. "You see, brother, you see what she truly is, a vessel of shadow, a curse upon us all." And Adrian, his face broke. The storm in his eyes turned to devastation. He dropped the dagger, the clang echoing like a death knell. The ground trembled. At first I thought it was the pounding of my own heart, but then the air itself split, an unnatural wind ripping through the courtyard, scattering ash and flame. Wolves stumbled back as the brazier fires bent toward the circle, pulled by some unseen force. And from the forest's edge he stepped into view, tall, powerful, cloaked in shadow and flame. His golden eyes burned like molten metal, locking onto me as though I were the only soul in existence. The dark Alpha. Gasps rose. Growls followed. Warriors drew blades, wolves bared teeth, but he didn't falter. He walked straight into the ritual circle as if he owned it, his presence bending every law, every ward, every oath. "You would brand her cursed," he said, his voice thunder wrapped in silk. "But she was never yours to judge." He stopped before me, his height drowning me in his shadow. His gaze softened. "Just for me. I told you, little wolf. When the moon rose, you would have to choose." He turned his golden eyes to Adrian, to Celine, to the entire pack. His aura cracked the night open. Gasps, screams, rage. But I didn't hear them. The only sound was my heartbeat as his hand brushed mine, the heat of him scorching, pulling, binding. The mark on my skin pulsed, answering him, alive with power. And in that instant, my heart betrayed me. I reached for him. Chapter 13. The Claim of Shadows. The courtyard was chaos. Wolves howled, claws scraped stone, steel clashed as warriors surged forward, torn between loyalty to Adrian and the terror that rolled off the dark Alpha like smoke from a battlefield. The moon, swollen and blood-red, spilled its light across the scene, every movement sharpened, every breath catching in the throat of the pack. And me? I stood in the center, my hand clasped in the dark Alpha's, my pulse racing, my soul split. Adrian moved first. His wolf shadow burst from him, silver and furious, his power crackling across the stones. His eyes locked on mine, hurt, betrayal, love and fury all at once. "You dare," he growled, stepping forward, voice shaking the ground. "You dare touch her in my pack, on my land?" The dark Alpha tilted his head, golden eyes burning. His voice was soft but unrelenting. "Your land? She was never yours. The blood moon speaks, and it speaks my claim." Their auras collided, invisible but palpable, pressing against every lung, choking the air. Wolves in the crowd fell to their knees, unable to withstand the weight of it. Celine's laughter cut through the tension like a poisoned blade. She stood behind Adrian, lips curved, eyes gleaming with triumph. "Do you see now? She was always meant to betray you, brother, always meant to fall to him. You chose the wrong sister." Her words sliced me deeper than any dagger, but before I could answer, Adrian's voice thundered again. "Leora, tell me this isn't your choice. Tell me you're not giving yourself to him." The world fell silent. My throat burned. The mark on my collarbone seared with heat every time the dark Alpha's thumb brushed my skin, and yet Adrian's gaze, raw, broken, pulled at something deeper. I thought of every night Adrian had been my shield, my anchor, of the girl I'd been before Celine's lies stole everything from me, of what home had once meant. But then I thought of fire and shadow, of how the dark Alpha's presence ignited me, made me more than the weak, forgotten sister. With him, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't broken. I was dangerous. My lips parted. But before I could speak, Celine struck. With a motion as swift as lightning, she seized the ceremonial dagger Adrian had dropped. Its runes glowed crimson in the moonlight as she lunged, not for me, but for him, the dark Alpha. "No!" I screamed, my body moving before thought. Her blade caught his side, shallow but enough to pierce skin. Shadows writhed where blood should have fallen. He staggered back, golden eyes blazing. The courtyard erupted into madness. Adrian roared, his wolf half-forming, silver fur and fangs tearing through the night as he launched himself at the dark Alpha. The clash was primal. Silver against shadow, storm against fire. Every blow shook the stones beneath us. Sparks burst as claws met claws, as power slammed into power. Wolves fled the circle, unable to endure the raw force unleashed. Celine darted between the chaos, shrieking for Adrian to end him, her voice weaving poison into the night. And me, I stood frozen, torn in two. Every strike Adrian landed felt like it landed on my heart. Every time the dark Alpha's golden eyes found mine, I felt myself burning alive. Then came the moment. Adrian had him on his knees, his silver aura pressing, the dagger clutched in his hand. One strike, and it would be over. One strike, and the dark Alpha's claim on me would be severed forever. "Choose, Leora," Adrian shouted, his voice breaking. "Choose your pack, choose me, or lose everything." The dark Alpha, blood and shadow dripping from his wound, lifted his head. His golden eyes burned, not with demand, but with something that undid me completely. "Little wolf, choose yourself, the rest will follow." My breath shattered, the world tilted, and in that instant I knew. I ran, not away but forward, into the circle, into the storm of their fight. My hand seized Adrian's wrist just as he drove the dagger downward. The blade stopped an inch from the dark Alpha's throat. Adrian's eyes widened, devastated. His lips formed my name like a prayer and a curse all at once. And I spoke the words that sealed my fate. I choose him. The silence that followed was unbearable. Adrian's body trembled beneath my touch, his silver aura flickering like a dying flame. His face broke, pain, rage, love and loss collapsing into one expression that would haunt me forever. The dagger slipped from his hand. He staggered back as though I had gutted him instead. Celine's scream tore the night apart. The dark Alpha rose, his hand gripping mine. His aura surged, shadows spilling outward, swallowing the circle, the pack, the night itself. His mark burned bright against my skin, binding us. The blood moon blazed overhead, sealing the bond in crimson fire. Gasps, sobs, curses erupted around us. Adrian fell to his knees, his wolf howling in agony. Celine's fury turned to desperation as she lunged again, but the dark Alpha's shadows caught her mid-air, slamming her into the stone. His voice thundered through the courtyard. "She is mine. The goddess herself has decreed it. Any who defy this bond defy the moon." No one moved, no one breathed. Chapter 14. Ashes and Shadows. The night after the blood moon was quiet, too quiet. The courtyard still smelled of fire and iron. Ash clung to the stones where wolves had bled, where vows had been shattered, where my choice had cleaved the pack in two. I stood at the edge of the ruins, the mark on my collarbone still pulsing faintly beneath my skin. It was no longer just a scar. It was alive, threaded into me like a second heartbeat. Behind me, I felt him. His presence filled the space like shadow fills a flame, silent, watchful, inevitable, the dark Alpha, my bondmate, my doom, my salvation. When his hand brushed mine, I didn't flinch, but I didn't lean in either. I was still learning how to breathe in this new life I had chosen. Adrian had left before dawn. No farewell, no words, just the hollow echo of his wolf's howl that carried across the valley until it broke. I'd listened with my hands pressed over my ears, as if blocking out the sound could soften the wound. It didn't. I knew where his rage would take him, into exile, into vengeance. And though I had chosen the dark Alpha, a part of me would always ache for the boy who had once been my shield. Celine had vanished. Her blood marked the courtyard, but her body was gone. No one had seen her leave, no trail remained. The dark Alpha said nothing, but I felt the truth in the way his golden eyes hardened whenever her name was spoken. She would return. Shadows always do, and when she did, it would be to finish what she had started. That night, beneath the fading glow of the blood moon, I finally looked into his eyes without fear. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek, gentler than his power should have allowed. "The price of shadow," he murmured. "You are mine now, and with me you will never be free. Not from them, not from me, not even from yourself." My breath caught. His words should have been chains, yet as he spoke them, I felt no cage, only fire, only the sharp edge of freedom disguised as ruin. Maybe this was who I had always been waiting to become. We stood together at the ruins, the pack scattered, the night split by silence. Somewhere in the distance, wolves howled, not in unity, but in division. I realized then that this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of something darker, something greater. I had chosen him, but destiny had chosen me long before. And so, as the moon waned and shadows settled, I understood. Survival is never clean, love is never safe, and destiny is never merciful. But this was my path. Mine to walk, mine to burn, mine to claim. If you felt the pull of this bond, the ache of this choice, stay with me. The story doesn't end here. Shadows are only just beginning to rise. If their story held you, if you felt every shadow and every heartbeat, follow, subscribe, and stay. The wolves will return, and their tale has only just begun.